Welcome to this library session on the scholarly conversation. To better understand what a scholarly conversation is, we'll take a look at the metaphor Burke's parlor, which discusses the unending conversation. Imagine that you enter a parlor. You come late, and when you arrive, others have long preceded you, and they are engaged in a heated discussion. A discussion too heated for them to pause and tell you exactly what it is about. In fact, the discussion had already begun long before any of them got there, so that no one present is qualified to retrace for you all the steps that had gone before. You listen for a while until you decide that you've caught the tenor of the argument, and then you put in your oar. Someone answers, you answer him, another comes to your defense, and another aligns himself against you, to either the embarrassment or gratification of your opponent, depending upon the quality of your ally's assistance. However, the discussion is interminable. The hour grows late, and you must depart, and you do depart, with the discussion still vigorously in progress. The scholarly conversation is found within the research literature contained in scholarly or peer-reviewed journals. The article databases to which the library subscribes have filters that can help us easily limit to this type of content. Using the library databases takes a little bit of practice and knowledge of search techniques, but is well worth the effort because the library provides access to indexed articles that you won't find indexed on the internet. A librarian can help provide instruction on those database search techniques. If you choose to use the internet, I would suggest a search tool like Google Scholar, which searches the scholarly literature, not a general Google search. Keep in mind that much of the recent research is not available on the internet for free. You might be prompted to pay for what you discover, while the library may very well have it available for free. To obtain the full text from an internet source, you'll need to use the Library OneSearch feature. And if we don't have it, we'll reach out to another library through interlibrary loan to see if another library can get it for you. So really, the library is the best bet all the way around. As the Burke's parlor metaphor suggests, research is not just randomly done in isolation. It looks to the past and builds upon the shoulders of other researchers. It looks at the collective thought and considers where it agrees and differs and stands upon those shoulders to produce new research from their established point of view. We can look to the references within an article, to the citations, to see where the original research came from, and repetitive references to the same articles can help us identify key research on a particular topic. We can also use those citations to trace down the original article and read it in its entirety. When you approach a research assignment, you begin with an idea that will be revised and shaped by what you learn about your topic from the research literature you discover in the process. Your project will become narrow and focused in scope so that you can focus the conversation into something that can be covered in a singular paper. A librarian can help you learn this discovery process, but I heartily recommend the University Writing Center as the source for putting it all together on paper. A component of every original research article is a literature review, and literature reviews can be in and of themselves a standalone article. Useful for understanding a literature review is to compare and contrast it with two other literary forms, the abstract and the annotated bibliography. They share some similar characteristics, but have some very distinct differences. In fact, you can utilize these forms as building blocks to your literature review. We'll begin with the abstract. The abstract summarizes a single source. A source can be an article, a book, a web page. And yes, they can have abstracts, but when I'm speaking about abstracts today, I'm primarily referring to articles. You can think of an abstract as a mini-me of the article. It represents the entire article in a single paragraph for the purpose of garnering the reader's attention in order to entice them to read it further. Think of it as a screening tool. Is it relevant? Does it address the research question you are looking to answer? If so, read further and decide if you might want to include it in an annotated bibliography. Remember, reading the abstract is never a substitute for reading the entire article. but it's the first step. It's an actual part of the article written by the authors, situated below the title in the article. Now let's examine the annotated bibliography. The annotated bibliography is a list of individual sources you consulted as you explore the literature on a research topic. This is an unbiased exploration where you look at multiple points of view as they address your topic, not just the one you're hoping to find. This list is not relating to one another, it's just a list. Much like a references list or a works cited list that you create at the end of a paper with the addition of the annotation. And the annotation portion always includes a summary paragraph and most often an evaluated paragraph. And a key difference from the summated paragraph in an abstract is that you must express it in your own words. So you can't copy and paste the abstract and use it as your summated paragraph. When we convey that meaning in our own words, it means we truly understand what we read. And the evaluated piece helps you to succinctly analyze the quality of the research, the relevancy, and to extract the meaningful aspects, again, in your own words. So think of it as an exploration and think of it as an individual list. And let's compare that to the literature review. The literature review begins to weave a story of all the prior research you found once you've focused your topic by summarizing, evaluating, and most importantly, synthesizing. And that's the key difference. It's providing a comprehensive overview and analysis of the topic, but it's drawing conclusions by weaving together this story. So it's talking about how one piece of research relates to another piece of research. The annotated bibliography did not do that. And you might not use everything you found in your annotated bibliography. As you've focused in on your topic, you may discard things from your annotated bibliography. At the conclusion, this literature review will help you form a thesis statement or hypothesis for your paper or your research. We've looked at the different purposes of the three literary forms, and we've also looked at their distinct differences. I'd like to talk further about their scope and their organization. When we look at the abstract of a primary research article, we notice that it informs and describes the article, but there's no external evaluation, no outside voice, just the facts as the researchers presented them. And we can recognize this research article by the distinct components. They always have an introduction, and in that introduction is a literature review on which the research being done is based. Then there's a methods, a results, a conclusion, and a references section. Now I'll turn my attention to the annotated bibliography, and there we're summarizing multiple sources individually. So I like to think of it as a long line of people standing there not interacting with one another. Keep in mind that your annotation is like 2 paragraphs, so it's not that long, but yet we're considering a lot of criteria. So each article, evaluate it and make sure it's appropriate. One of the tools we use to check for appropriateness is the CRAP test, which is relative to your purpose. The C stands for currency. So how current do you need the article to be? You want to look at the publication date. Relevancy refers to the audience, and you want to make sure you have the appropriate type of periodical. You want to make sure you're not using a magazine article written for the general public because we're going to be doing a literature review. We want those scholarly peer-reviewed articles. You want to make sure it's not a trade journal. That's for a professional and not the general public, but at the same time, it's not primary or secondary research. That's scholarly. Check and see, well, who wrote the article and what are their credentials? We want to make sure that they provide us with references to back up their claims. When we look at the purpose of the study, we want to see, was there some sort of funding for this study? Does somebody have a vested interest in the outcomes? These are all things you want to consider, and you might not address all of them in your annotation. But what you do want to do is analyze it to see what is so significant about what you discovered that you want to include in your annotated bibliography. And so you're not necessarily summarizing the whole entire article as you did with the abstract. You're basically going to use this to build your literature review. So you want to be able to reflect on how it's going to serve your purpose. So you're looking for any significant contribution, any type of added value, any distinguishing approaches, data that was unearthed that's very significant. Um, it won't be all those things for every article or every project you undertake, but that's the type of information you find in the annotated bibliography. Use your annotated bibliography as your notes to putting together your literature review. So the literature review does summarize, evaluates, but we did say before, it synthesizes. So think of it not as that long line of people, but as putting the pieces of the puzzle together. And when you're organizing it, you want to use a certain approach. Most often, it's centered around the different themes that you find about your topic. So you want to organize your research, your authors, into their particular themes. And then you want to look at the strengths and weaknesses of those studies and where there's gaps, what hasn't been done yet that you will put forth or the next researcher will put forth to carry forward that scholarly conversation. Keep in mind that your literature review should read as a cohesive narrative. That's how stories are told. To help you think about this from another point of view, think about it as one giant conversation around your focused topic. And all the conversation bubbles inside are the individual articles that you found and identified in your annotated bibliography. The different colors represent the themes you identified around your topic. So identify each theme and then begin to discuss the individual articles within. You'll notice looking at the pink theme that some of the articles overlap in what they found or what they thought. Some of them are on the fringe and outside that actual theme. We see that throughout. When we look at the orange theme, we see that a bunch of concentric conversations. So everybody seemed to agree in that particular theme. And then we look at the green theme. Every conversation was individual, disparate. So there was no overlap. And then we look between the green and the blue, and we see where an article can overlap from one theme to another. So they're not discussed in isolation, they're discussed together and how they relate to one another. In the end, the conversation around your topic is going to include your research that you've done, represented here in the purple, that has in its literature review all those other conversations, the pink, the green, the orange, and the blue. Students sometimes struggle with the differences and understanding what to do between their annotated bibliography and their literature review. I hope this makes it clearer. Another thing that will make it clearer is as you begin to read primary and secondary research, you'll be able to see this development in action.